Rightio, so I'm pumped about today's video for two reasons. The first, we've got some pre-release product, highly anticipated stuff that we're gonna do a review on. The second, one of you guys is gonna walk away with a set of it. What I'm talking about is Daiwa's latest Infeet models. They're brand new rods that are for 2020, and I've got a fair bit to say about them, so let's get into it. I really do have a fair bit to say about these rods. I've had them for about 3 weeks now, and I can confidently say I'm probably up in the triple figures here with the amount of fish that I've got on them. I have been using them over and over. I really wanted to test the rods out before I opened my mouth on how good these guys are or are not. So the truth of this scenario is that this isn't the first time I've actually seen these rods. I first saw them 6 months ago at the Australian Championships. They weren't tagged Infeet at the time. I didn't know that they would be the new Infeet rods. They were blank, designless rods with some guides on them and a reel seat. I played with them for about a minute and formed no opinion because I hadn't fished with them. A friend of mine did get the opportunity to fish with them at that event though, and he was leading the Australian Championship at day one. Now, when asked post his experience about the rods, he said that he wouldn't be surprised if the rods went for over 600 bucks. The reality is though, that they're being released at a third of that price. Now, if we consider what rods are at 600 bucks, we're talking the Daiwa Battler, Samurai Infinite, and the Miller rods. Now, they're three brands that I personally use. Yes, there are many others that sit around that, but you get the point. Now, let me rewind all of that for you if you didn't pick that up. An angler good enough to lead the Australian Championships made an assessment on the utility of a rod to put it in a $600 class, and Daiwa are releasing that rod at $189. I hope I've got your attention. I think it's gonna wake some people up. A couple of formalities here. I'm not the type of guy that's gonna force a 12-year-old kid that's got minimal pocket money to spend on fishing gear, on bad fishing gear, based on something that I said. So you're gonna get honesty, you're gonna get both sides of the coin. That being said, Daiwa has not paid for this review. Not only that, the rods that I've been given are being passed on to somebody else. Open book, I might look at getting something when stock comes back in and the product is released, but I'm gonna be waiting just like everybody else. Right, so let's talk about the giveaway I mentioned earlier. It'll net you 2 of these brand new Infeet rods for $189 a pop, delivered to your address when they're released in October. To enter, I need you to do 2 things. The first, like and subscribe this video down there. Hit those buttons. And also comment on which models of those $189 range Infeet models that you would like. You can choose whatever 2 that you like. The second thing I need you to do is follow BerleyPro at either one of the 2 links below, that is Instagram or Facebook. Now, if you're not familiar with BerleyPro, they're the guys that make sounder transducer covers for kayaks and have gone a big way internationally. In my opinion, the product's actually good for boats as well. They've just been able to break that kayak market. They're that small business that have been making face shields and donating them to medical staff all across the country whilst this COVID crisis is going on. Now, if that's not worth a like or follow enough, I don't know what is. Also, they're the people that are shouting the win of the rods. So thanks Marty and BerleyPro for the support for the channel. So let's kick off by starting about how those rods look. I usually wouldn't do this, but They've got two in the series, and I think the identifiable features are pretty important. So one's white and blue trimmed with a black base, and the other one is a black and red trim on a black base. Now, I love the idea that they've got them color coded for even the deck of the kayak or the boat, because you can quickly grab the one that tapers the way that you want them. It actually also means that when you're rigging overnight, you don't have to pick up the rods and read which one you've got. You can actually go quickly to the color. It's that little 1%er that I'd actually like to see through their entire Daiwa range, to be honest. I think they're onto something there. Maybe a little tick mark somewhere, or a slight color paint drop or something to identify which one is which. I'm a huge fan of it. Huge fan of it. So those of you looking for the slower taper, the white and blue, that's going to be good for your cranking, rolling hard bodies and on flats against poles, fishing the cranker crabs in most of those scenarios. And after using the particular model that I've got, blading little metallics in the deep, you look for the blue and white for any form of fishing where pulling hooks is a consideration and you're trying to avoid that. So whenever the fish runs, you want a lot of give in the rod. There's a link down below that you can have a look to. Steve Morgan's got a great little video of him testing some of the stuff out against a few different poles and whatnot. Looks kind of nice, and he's explaining what's going on there. Easy to cast as well. You don't really need to load up those white rods. They will just flick a lure a long way. So the rods with the red and black trim are your fast tapered rods, and they're useful for anybody that likes soft plastics and likes to be in touch with the tip of their rod. For me, I also like that type of rod for jerk baits. Now, it's my opinion that long-term Daiwa have always excelled at the faster tapered rods. I reckon that's their specialty. The design is cosmetically appealing to me. That red and black taper, I really like it. It looks like candy. I want to pick it up when it's next to my Miller. I hate to say it, but when it's next to my Battler, I want to pick it up. When it's next to all of my rods, I want to pick that black fast tapered Infeet rod up. I really like the color profiles to it. It's appealing. I think it'll sell really well on the shelf, and it looks good. All right, that's a fair bit of talking from me for the moment, so I'm gonna need a drink. Here's some cutaway. I'll be back in a sec. All right, so a couple of points about the Infeet rods themselves. So they are the HVF blank. I'll see if I can get that to focus on that. HVF blank. Now, that HVF high volume fiber or something or other, I don't know, I don't want to get too technical on this video, but that blank is associated with the Battler range. Now, for those of you that don't know the Battler range, they're a $5.99 range. I've loved those rods since they've come out, and these rods feel like that. They've got that crisp feel, the snappy whip through the air whenever you cast. Right. It's really impressive. The rods are really an extension of the arm. Rightio, so the guide trains across the 3 different models of the new Infeets are all different. This one has got Fuji's latest Fazlite K-series rings. Now, if I go to the website and have a quick read about them, you have to appreciate that the translation can be slightly off here. But they talk about it's an all-new formulation designed for braid-proof, rod-locker-tough, and smooth as silk performance for the fishing rod. You kind of expect them to say anyway. It also talks about the new corrosion control matte finish construct that these rings on the inside of the guides have got. And the bit that I found actually interesting in the data was that they continuously sprayed salt and it lasted 7 times longer than stainless steel. Now that's a bit of a call. Now when you pick it up and touch those Fazlite rings for the first time, you'll be able to feel that they are polished and quite supple. So that tells me that whenever the braid's passing through it for a cast, for example, the braid's going to be taken care of and you're going to minimize the wear on the line that you've got as well. So not all these Infeet models are the same. As you go up through the different tiers, they do change to titanium makes and stainless steel. Then eventually we get to the AGS guides that we all know Daiwa have got a monopoly on, then no other company are able to get their hands on. So of course they would be on the flagship Infeet model series. The other piece I want to talk about, it's probably easy to see on the white one that it is the black one, is the handle itself. Now you can see it's got a bit of a V shape here. Surprisingly, really comfortable. I saw this and I went, man, I don't know if that's a nice thing, but it fits in the hand really nicely. So you can see there, the V shape. It just sits in the web very nicely. Thumb on one side, forefinger on the other, and you've got a tiny little groove on that top side there that'll sit, obviously these hands around the reel typically, but that's how I hold it. The rod sits nicely into the web or the meat of the forearm. Initially I thought this was a little bit too short, but not a problem at all. I then compared it to some other rods. Here's some side footage. You'll notice that this is actually quite a nice length. So in terms of some of the data on it, go have a look at the website if you're like a numbers dude. But I'd implore you to go have a look at the Commander Daiwa site. Have a look at some of the specs that are on that bad boy. Transfer straight across onto the $189 Infeet rod range and compare. You'll be blown away. You're looking at some rods here that have got features that are well surpassed their price range. To be honest, I can't help but think that Daiwa's got some problems in that they've created this particular rod. How are the other ones going to stand out? So another cool little feature of the rod is the hook keeper that you can see right here. Now, it is below the reel seat. Initially, I hated this. I was straight on the messenger, I was straight on the blower to Tommy Slater going, why is it below? It just feels a bit weird. He turns around and goes, if it's down there, there is zero opportunity for it to tangle in this portion of the rod. To which I went, do that every single time to all my rods, please, because performance is what you want on the water. It's not convenience of where to store your lures. I would take that position over these positions for practicality every single day of the week over a cosmetic nuance that I'll probably just have to get used to a little bit. But really like that. That was a really nice modification there. So you might be forgiven for thinking that these things are delicate because I'm using the words like precision instrument when I describe it and extensions of your hand. But the truth of the matter is that I've been pulling out just short of 1.5 kilo black brim and just skull dragging the crap out of them to the boat. It's been really impressive to see these rods perform, and these are the light versions of the rods. Now, length for length, I understand these rods are about 10 grams lighter than a Miller rod, which is already a nice, precise, light rod. And I can tell you that after backing up a 16-hour day using these rods, I felt zero arm, wrist, elbow fatigue. It was like I hadn't even gone fishing. I was that impressed with it. For a lure fisherman, you know that I'm probably casting somewhere between 30 to 60 times in an hour over that 16-hour day. That is a long day. To then back it up the following day and go fishing again with these rods, it wasn't a problem at all. Now, I put a 1000, a 2000, a 2500 and a 3 on these rods, and they were good to go. I wouldn't probably go the 3 as my preference. I wouldn't go above 3 because I reckon it just becomes a bit too taily, the rod, a little bit of out of balance. I reckon that 2000 size is really, really nice for me. The 2500 is really good as well. I know a lot of people prefer the 2500. It's a nice all-rounder. And if you're that pure finesse dude, the 1000 size reel on these rods doesn't even feel like that reel is there. It is ridiculous in the weightlessness, if that's the right term. Rightio, so the lights are dying here. I'm going to wrap this up, but I'm going to leave with a couple of points. The first is that I don't think this 20 Infeet range by Daiwa is reinventing any wheels. What I mean by that is that Daiwa know how to make fishing rods. They've got rod makers that know how to put features in rods to increase my feel of what's going on with the lure at the other end of the line. Now, typically in the light game, you're gonna have to spend $400, $500, $600 plus to get a lot of those features. It's been evident for some time that Daiwa are trying to grab all those features at the top of the market and then bring them back down. And I think the 20 Infeet range makes a giant headway there. I do think the $189 price point is pretty unbelievable, and there's some words that I'd like to use, but I can't on camera. Now, the reason I say that is because I like to quantify what $189 is. If I consider $180 is 10 lures, and a tournament guy like me might lose on a bad day, admittedly, 15 to 20 odd lures, then it kind of becomes a bit more of a no-brainer. I can pick one up for nothing, and if I don't like it, I can just hock it off online for $150 or so, and then try another model. Now, I've got an opinion that there's a lot of trash out there when it comes to walking into a major retailer and picking up rods, particularly those Barbie and Ken color suited rods that you know you're going to throw out just after your long weekend. If you're ever thinking about buying one of those, don't bother. Passionately, they're a waste. If you think about it, nobody's ever going to take up a sport using horrible gear. If you want your kids to come along fishing with you, buy something nice that they get the opportunity to use, that also, hey, by the way, when they're not with you, you can use and be really happy with it. They can be proud of their gift, happy to go fishing, and hopefully nail some fish. The last point I'll make is if you close a car door, run over it with your vehicle, break a tip, you're going to be upset, but we're not talking a biblical breakdown where you've just crushed 5 rods that are all $500 a piece. If I break them, well, they're not a huge amount to replace. Now, the rods do hit the market in October 2020 in a couple of months' time, and I understand I'm the first guy to get my hands on them. So if you've got any questions about them, hit me in the comments below, and I'll 100% answer every single one of them. I will also remind you that if you want to be one of the first to get your hands on the pair, remember that competition I mentioned earlier, get in with the details, and hopefully you can be in the running for some top quality gear. I hope you've enjoyed the review. I will leave you with the thought that I've never picked up a rod that's been this well balanced or has fished this well for under $400. Stay safe. See you later.